How are we looking?
We're good.
We're live?
I'm going to test the levels now that we got it. Go ahead. Yeah, you guys can start.
All right, baby. Welcome. Welcome, my friends. Look, I'm glad that we're back after a few weeks of we didn't have broadcasts. I think I was out of town 1 week, Dathan was out of town 1 week, and then I think we had a scheduling conflict last week. But we missed you guys, and I know you guys missed us because everybody was squawking at me. Where's our Facebook Live broadcast? So we're glad to be back. We've got two very special guests today. You're used to seeing this handsome fella, Damian Squires, with MyMorgo. If you haven't checked out the MyMorgo app, you need to do that because it is killing it, getting rave reviews. We've also got Josh Johnson with Clarity Appraisal Incorporated. This is our master appraiser who's going to answer all of your questions today. We're going to talk a little bit about sort of the history of appraisals and how it used to be and how that system was flawed, but that maybe now after the AMC companies, the appraisal management companies sort of came into being, that I feel like maybe the pendulum has swung back the other way a little too much. But we'll talk about all that in just a little bit. We've got a couple of housekeeping things to talk about. But before we do that, I just very quickly want to tell everybody how excited Dathan and I are. We're talking about it this morning that guess what starts tonight?
Football.
NFL, baby.
Football.
Cowboys and Buccaneers. For all of you Cowboy loser fans out there, are you a Cowboy fan, Josh?
I'm a Falcons fan.
Falcons, and you're an old Oilers guy like me.
Yeah, I was an Oilers fan.
So the reason that I have always hated the Cowboys is because I was jealous. Because the Oilers, I grew up in Houston. I grew up a mile from the Astrodome, man. And the Oilers, even when they were good, they could never quite get over the hump. You know, and I still remember the 93 playoff game where they blew a 35-point lead. And so, like, I've always hated the Cowboys just because they were winning Super Bowls during this time, and their fans were always super, arrogant and obnoxious about that. But I will tell you, I love Dak, man.
Yeah.
And I love Zeke. He's a really good guy.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, I'm picking the upset tonight.
Wow.
I am.
Wow.
A lot of people have the Bucs going undefeated.
It's
was
hard
watching,
to argue against Brady. I mean,
the roster too now.
My mind was changed last year. Like I was going, there's no way he's going to a new team.
Yeah.
He's got,
It was mostly Belichick in the system.
Belichick, and then I don't know when that video came out, but it's him with the throwing machine, and part of it looks like it's a little.
That's got to be fake.
No,
that's fake.
But it's amazing.
If it is fake, if it's real, then it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if you've watched any of the Hard Knocks, but to realize how accurate those guys are, like Dak on a full sprint out, running and throwing into a square this big. 15, 20 yards down the field. If you look at that video, Brady's only 10 yards from that thing. It looks a lot further on camera.
Right.
And then he steps back to 15 yards. So I think he could do it.
I'd be lucky to be able to hit the machine at all.
Maybe he did it.
I'd throw my
That'd be
arm
pretty
out.
amazing.
But we got our Broncos boy over here. Dathan loves the Broncos. He's hopeful about the Broncos, who have a really good roster, except for one insignificant
key position.
Yeah, the quarterback.
Who's it? Ostweiler this year? No, that was 2 years ago.
Well, Bridgewater was named the starter. Drew Lock was their first round draft pick 3 years ago.
We passed on Justin Fields, so just to be clear. That's why I think we got to play for Aaron Rodgers for next year. Or Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. I think Cam Newton's still available.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited because I think it's going to be a really cool football season. And even though I would kind of like to see the Buccaneers go undefeated, I just have a feeling that the Cowboys have underachieved for so long, and Dak got hurt, and Zeke's been fat the last few years, and he's trimmed down now.
I think Zeke's going to go off tonight.
I do too. Yeah. I think he's going to go off this season, and I think Dak is too. And I'll tell you what, if you're a betting person, the line on this game is 8.5. I would bet Cowboys to cover all day long.
Wow.
If you're a betting person, you need to go on to Fox Sports Bet or whatever program you use, and you need to lay, a couple $100 on the Cowboys to cover. because I feel like that's going to happen.
Might have to do that.
But anyway, really important thing right now is grand opening a week from today of our brand new San Antonio office. So next Thursday, September the 16th, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., we're going to have the grand opening at our new office, which is at 2722 West Bidders Road, Suite 130, San Antonio, 78248. Dathan is going to post the flyer for the party, the grand opening party next week. We've got live jazz, we've got free booze, we've got free food. I've been asked to wear my tuxedo.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to be wearing my tuxedo. So if you want to get pictures with the boss man of you and me in a tuxedo, do it. And we've got a couple of ladies who I think are going to be wearing some really nice formal stuff too. You don't have to dress up formal though. If you're within earshot, whether you're an all-city agent or not, whether you're in San Antonio agent or not, we would love for you to come down there. I'm going to be getting a hotel room. I'm staying so that I can drink plenty of whiskey and cold beer. And we would love for you guys to do it. This place where the office is off, what's it, 1604?
Yeah, 1604.
60, which is a really cool part of town. Lots of shops and restaurants. And it's going to be a good time. We're going to have a professional photographer there. We're going to be doing headshots. So if you need a headshot, head on down there. You're welcome to bring anybody you want. And, oh, by the way, if you bring a non-all-city agent to the grand opening and just let us know, we'll write their name down. If that person signs up with All City, your recruiting bonus will jump from $250 per agent to $500 per agent just for this event. They don't have to sign up that day for the event for you to get the $500 recruiting bonus, but let us know what their names are. We'll have a list and we'll put their name down, and if they do end up joining, because you brought them to the event, your bonus will double from $250 to $500. One last housekeeping item. Oh, by the way, is our office going to be closed, Dathan, on next Thursday? No, so we'll still have folks here. Let me tell you something. We had sort of a second rollout of something that we put together a couple years ago, and it's an agent helpline. It's 833 Just Ask, and we rolled it out. We have some agent advisors who are helping us with this. I think we got more than a dozen agent advisors, and it's a really cool system that Dathan put together. We bought this phone number, 833 Just Ask, and we connected it to a Vonage app, such that if you have a contracts question, anything that you feel like is not so crazy important that you need to call me, this is how we're going to keep our fees low. We're in love with $150 a month. We never want to have to raise it. But if we get to the point, and we're going to get to that point here pretty quick, that I can't handle the volume of calls, then we would have to hire someone. Well, what we came up with was we vetted some advisor agents, and those agents have this Vonage app on their phone. So every time you, an all-city agent, call 833 Just Ask with your contract question, 15 phones ring simultaneously. And whoever picks it up first answers the question. And ever since we re-rolled it out a few weeks ago, it has been unbelievable, and the feedback has been incredible. And like just this morning, one of our agents called, who calls me all the time. Well, she happened to find out about 833 Just Ask. She called. I couldn't even reach fast enough to pick up my phone, let alone hit answer, and someone else had answered it. And so we're getting rave reviews from it, and thank you to all of our advisor agents for doing that. But make sure that if you have something that's not earth-shaking, or you don't feel like we're going to get sued or anything, in those situations, call me. But if it's just a normal run-of-the-mill contract question, compliance question, try it out. Call 833 Just Ask, because this is another way that we are empowering you. We're empowering you to get your questions answered in a timely manner and not have to wait for a callback. So let's get into it. Like I said, we've got Josh Johnson, the president of Clarity Appraisal Incorporated, with us. We got our buddy Damian Squires with us, who's going to chime in on sort of the underwriting part as it applies to the loan, while still related to the appraisal part. Okay, so I'll just kick it off by sort of talking a little bit about how it used to be back. When did that change? About 2008. Was it that?
Yeah. Well, the appraiser independence statute actually, they went
was like
through
11, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
2010.
10, 11.
They started really enforcing it. So.
Prior to that, the way this thing worked was a loan officer would have some appraisers that he or she, used quite frequently. Well, why would a loan officer have appraisers that they use those 2 or 3 or 4 people, but not try out other people? Well, it's because those appraisers typically met value for them. In other words, that loan officer had those appraisers in their back pocket, and it was a win-win for everybody. Buyer got to buy, seller got to sell, loan officer got the approval, appraiser got the business, right?
Yeah.
But it also had sort of a shady aspect to it. Did you feel that at the time?
Yeah, well, if you stopped getting the value, you'd stop getting work.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest
kind of a scam in a way, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a scam.
Yeah.
Well, appraiser independence came about, and it was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I came out of the wholesale arena where I was dealing with brokers, and brokers, you would go into a broker shop, and the appraiser may even be in their office, and they're doing a lot of cash out refis. Well, on a cash out refi, the more value you get, the more loan you get.
Right.
So, or you have a loan. Until 1998, the state of Texas wouldn't even allow you to cash out your equity.
Yeah.
And they came out with the, Article 50A6, the amendment to the state constitution. So when you look at that and kind of how the next few years rolled out, you had a low barrier to entry to get into the mortgage business. You had some unscrupulous people coming into the business. You had, in many cases, it was the Wild West.
You want to know how low the bar was to become a loan officer? I got my loan officer's license at the same time I got my real estate license. I never used it. I never did anything with it. But I think it was like all the same classes applied. Maybe I had to take 1 or 2 more.
In many states, that's the way it is. In the state of California, you actually have to be a licensed realtor to get a loan officer's license. I
didn't know that. That's interesting.
That goes more to the real estate lobby has always been a very large lobby in any state. So the realtor lobby has always been able to influence above and beyond the banking world. It's that way in DC right now. NAR is such a bigger influence than the NBA, but that's a totally different story. But the barrier to entry, like you said, was very low. You had a lot of loan officers needing to get value to get that deal closed, and their influence. You had appraisers coming in and buying, going to, restaurants and taking them to dinner, playing golf, and,
breakfast tacos,
everything.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of recruiting.
We still do that.
Yeah.
We still play golf and go out to dinner.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were too busy these days.
But in your opinion, we talked a little bit about it earlier. In your opinion, it's a million times better now.
Well,
we
we work for the banks. We work for the lenders. So, whether the value comes in or it hits or it's below, it doesn't really affect us.
Yeah.
That's not really our job, is to say, well, let's get this value for this. It's what is the value?
And we can't.
Right.
We can't
So,
say that.
right. But back then, they could be like,
Yeah.
hey, can you get this value? Yes or no. If you say no, then say, all right, we're going to the next one.
Well, while we're sort of giving you the backstory here, y'all start thinking of your questions, because we were supposed to have done this same broadcast a few weeks ago, and then I think either you had COVID or somebody in your office had COVID.
You got COVID.
Yeah.
Somebody had COVID, and we had to reschedule. But I know a lot of you had already started asking questions about things like, prior to the appraiser coming to the house, is there anything I can do to supply information that A, would be valuable, potentially valuable to the appraiser, and B, can I do that, and C, should I do that, or is that going to piss he or she off. So
Every
what
appraiser
are-
is different. I welcome any information
You
that
do.
the agent has.
So if an agent had a packet that
Yeah,
was very
absolutely.
well put together and in many ways reminiscent of what an appraisal report looks like, or even if it was just comps based on the MLS sold data, would those things potentially
I've gotten
be-
across the board. I've gotten just a few comps. Hey, here's a few comps I picked. A lot of times it's overboard where it's here's a survey.
Here's a grid.
Right, we
Yeah.
have all that information already, so they could save their time on.
And that
getting
doesn't
that,
make
but-
you mad or offend
No,
you.
absolutely
Do,
not.
do you know appraisers who they don't like getting those things?
I mean, I've heard of appraisers
I've
from
heard
other
of it.
agents being like, I don't need it.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
but no thanks.
but
right?
I mean, that's not how I operate and how I teach my appraisers to operate.
And would you say that occasionally it actually does help you if comps are hard to find, hard to come by?
Well, I mean, the agents really know. A lot of times I say, what'd you base this list price on? What are the comps that you based it on? They say, well, here's the comps that I have.
yes.
A lot of times, one or two might be the comps that I picked in the preliminary stages of looking at comps before I went out and say, oh, well, you picked two of the same comps I picked.
That helps to really
Absolutely.
cement that value.
And then sometimes it's none of the comps that I picked. And I still don't use their comps, but I still make my value of where I think it is. And it usually, I mean, I'm not in the business of coming below value. Not that I always hit, but it is in this market, it's pretty easy to find value. If you
Right, in this
Yeah.
market, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now, let me ask you this, because we hear horror stories all the time about an AMC, an appraisal management company, who assigns an appraiser who lives and does business in San Antonio to come do an appraisal in a market that they know nothing about. Does that happen frequently? Or
I
is
think
that a
it's just
rare
with
thing?
the volume that's going on right now. That's what's happening. We're getting Dallas guys coming down. I would never go to San Antonio
Dallas
or
guys
Dallas
coming down to
because I don't
Austin?
know. I do enough work here.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you do that?
No, absolutely not.
you
I
won't
work
take-
Travis Williamson, and
and
that's
that's
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have appraisers that do Hayes and Burnett and Bastrop counties, but
I think when
Travis
you see
Williamson.
that, and that speaks more to the AMC side. So,
That's what I wonder.
So,
Sure.
as a lender, we are set up with 4 AMCs. And I actually work only with one of those AMCs because what happens is, you end up getting a saturation of orders going out to an appraiser. So how many emails would you say your team gets a day that are orders? So this is the process. Most of the industry uses the Mercury network, which is it was a great technology when we bought it at AmeriPro.
Let's stop right there. Let's dumb it down to my level.
Okay,
Let me just ask you this first of all. To start the process, the underwriting process has moved forward to the point that you're ready to order an appraisal. The underwriter or the loan officer approaches the AMC.
Our team, our disclosure team, orders it through the AMC.
And how do y'all pick which AMC you use? Appraisal management company, right?
Yeah.
So the appraisal management company has a roster of appraisers that they utilize, and the order. How many AMCs do you work with?
I work with one AMC.
Just one, and is that normal?
That is normal for many companies. Some companies have several AMCs.
They do.
Yeah. So,
right, if one can't get the job done or find an appraiser, they go to the next appraisal management
And
company
which
do
is
they-
a
and get it
failed
done.
system. That's where I was going.
What
with
what's
this.
failed? Say it again.
It's failed because if you're just shotgunning it out, which is what happens, and this is
Yeah.
why I asked how many emails he gets for orders. A lot of loan officers, larger box lenders, they don't have relationships locally. They don't have relationships statewide. They may be based out of Chicago, and they send it through their AMC. Their AMC starts scrambling to find an appraiser in Austin, Texas, and will send it to him, to another appraiser, to another appraiser. So his inbox will have an order for an appraisal that he may never look at.
Right.
Who establishes the price of that appraisal?
The
Both.
the market.
Yeah.
The
I
market.
mean, sometimes we get an order from a client saying, hey, give us a
When
bid.
you say client,
An AMC.
Okay.
Right? Say the lender wants this order. What's your best turn time? What's your bid?
you, the appraiser.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we say
Your best turn time and your best
right,
bid.
and it wasn't always like that. That's just the last year.
So what do you recall when we first a few weeks ago said that we were about to do this broadcast, and someone on I think the All City Collaborative gave an example of the AMC having, Joe Schmo, the appraiser, come out and do the appraisal, and the total price for the appraisal was, in this case, it was $2,000, and the AMC got $1,500 and the appraiser got $500. You remember that? Did you see that?
I saw something to that effect.
That's unreal.
I've never heard of
that.
such a thing.
Usually they get 150. AMCs usually get 100 to 150 per report that goes through them. Yeah.
That's it? That's all they make?
Yeah. They don't.
So it's about turning and burning for them.
Yeah.
And
they
I
want quantity.
chose my AMC based off of what they charge, which is $95. That's what I.
So that whatever we saw was either fake or an anomaly.
It could happen,
You remember what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah,
There's some AMCs that did that.
When AMCs first started coming to light, their perspective was that we are giving you business that you would never have, so you take what we give you. And like I said, the market demands what that price and what that value is. Josh,
now we have to state what the AMC is charging and what we're getting on the reports.
We got a question, I think, over here.
Yeah, let's get into some questions for the agents. For Josh, so there's one question. Jamie said she has appraisers call her frequently about pending sales. They're
Absolutely.
not for her deal, but they're for, I guess, the neighborhood or surrounding deals. Is that something that's
And her listing is pending,
and her listing is pending.
We're making that a practice now because contract prices are far exceeding list price. Where if we have a contract price on a house we may be working on, and it's sold for $80,000 above this list price, and we need a pending sale. Well, that pending sale on the list price isn't supporting our opinion of value. So we say, let's call the agent, see what the actual contract price is. Some agents don't tell us, most do. And they say, my contract price is this.
Okay.
Then we can put it in our report, and all of a sudden it supports it.
Yeah.
Right, because that's what I was going to ask is sort of the, I don't know if I would call it an ethical component on the agent side, but a potential breach of confidentiality for them to tell someone who's not a principal what they're under contract for before it closes. So you specifically asked that question.
Yeah,
and
we
then
do.
some agents tell you and some don't.
Yep, and the only people that are seeing our reports is the underwriter.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
not going to be like
not going out.
Yeah.
And it's really not putting a whole lot of weight on that pending sale because it's not closed.
That's interesting.
So
I hadn't
it's
heard
just
of
really
that.
to show trends.
When did that start becoming
We
more
started doing that about 6 months ago when we started seeing just the spike in, a list for 400,000 and closed for 600.
And
So,
not only that,
you can't really.
not only that, with the inventory as low as it is, you don't have as many sold comps
Right,
to go
yeah,
by. So you
absolutely.
started working on
So
pending.
it seems to me that for our agents, it may be good practice to share that information.
Yeah, and
with the pending information
like I
with
said,
the appraiser.
it's not our place to go out. We don't ever talk about these values outside our reports. So
Well, you know what would actually, that's an interesting point, Dathan, because if you think about it, in this case, Jamie, was that Jamie Hornbuckle?
Yes.
For Jamie Hornbuckle's deal, if an appraiser calls her and her listing is pending for $50,000 more than the list price, which is what's reflected as the pending, the price in the MLS, which is what you'll see. And Josh calls Jamie and asks that question, then to me, it would behoove everyone for Jamie to go to the seller and say, hey, I've got an appraiser who wants me to give them how much we're under contract for, and since we're $50,000 more, this could potentially help us if that property appraises.
because an underwriter is going to look at it
Because we're going to go through the same thing in 2 weeks anyway.
They're going to say,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
said it's an increasing market, but your pending doesn't support it. And we say,
Yeah.
well, we don't know the contract price. It's typically over list price right now. Well, we can't prove that. And now we're trying to prove it.
Do you ever go back after the fact and see if the the pending price is bullshit that they told you? Like maybe they inflated it a little bit?
Actually, I mean, I've done it a few times because I've used the sale once it closed. So
did you ever come across
I
one
haven't
where they
come
told you
across
one
anybody
thing, but it
lying
really
yet.
No.
Thank God.
That's
Yeah.
Here
So
we go.
we got another question. So very simple. Do you have the contract when you accept an assignment?
We request it, to bid on it. So, and sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't.
Is it a
But
policy for you guys?
Our team sends the contract.
100%
So
of the time.
the process for our team is that the contract comes in, we trigger the loan, which means that it has the six RESPA. Yeah, hey.
The sex respite.
The 6 RESPA triggers. So then it goes to our disclosure team. Our disclosure team then sends the order to our AMC along with the contract.
That's
So-
awesome. What
so
good
it's-
information this
It's
is. Wow.
little things that you can do to help our appraiser partners know what's going on.
What percentage of the time would you say you do receive the contract prior to doing the appraisal?
Well, I mean, I would say 90% of the time.
Oh, that
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Because the AMC usually has it on their
their portal.
files available
Yeah.
for download.
Yeah.
So we can look at it.
And then the appraiser will sometimes come back and, because it's obviously a negotiation during the option period and whatnot, or maybe something changed in the middle of it. And if there's any amendments, 'cause there's amendments later after
Sure.
the fact all the time.
But we're just trying to get a ballpark figure of what we're dealing with. So we can look for comps and say, okay, we can turn this around pretty quick. It's a pretty basic house. Contract price isn't crazy over list price. It's supported.
So let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about the timing real quick. We're hearing horror stories about 6-week turn times for appraisals. In general, just on average, nobody's going to hold you to this.
Yeah.
From the time you receive the request from the AMC and you accept that assignment to the time that the underwriters get your appraisal, on average, in general, what are we looking at for you personally?
Right now, in this market, I mean, 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
4 weeks,
yeah.
5
Yeah.
weeks.
I mean, we could book up. There's so much volume going out there. We could book up 3 months if we wanted to.
Let me tell you and stress this. We've talked about this before. This is the exact reason why you have to be in contact with your loan officer as an agent when you're the buyer's agent or even a listing agent. Because if somebody is getting financing and they're like, we're already pre-approved as buyers and our lender has assured us that we can do a 3-week closing, 3 weeks from the executed date. Well, guess what? Just because the lender can do it for your buyer approval and property approval, as we talked about a million times, are two separate worlds in the universe of underwriting. So just because you're approved as a buyer, great. Who cares? 4 or 5 weeks for
now
an
you can
appraisal,
pay for a rush fee.
Yeah.
They will.
Yeah.
but that still doesn't guarantee you're going to get it in less than that 4 or 5 weeks.
No, not
So
necessarily.
that's why before you even write the offer, you need to talk to the loan officer and say, what is a reasonable amount of time, a reasonable expectation for an appraisal for this house?
And I think that's a great point. These are the questions that, in order to represent your client at the highest level, you have to know and you have to understand
That's
to
right.
ask.
That's right.
Don't just take the buyer's agent word for it. Oh yeah, we can get it done in 3 weeks, because that's not
Yeah.
always the case. One thing that I know is a very kind of hot button point here is about price per square foot.
Okay.
How much does that factor into the appraisal, and what is the significance of price per
Sure,
square foot?
I've talked about this multiple times. So price per square foot is skewed definitely from the size of the house. So if you're dealing with a 5,000 square foot house, it's going to be much lower than a 3,000 square foot house. So an agent sends me all these comps and the price per square foot is right there, but they're all outside 25% or 30% of gross living for my house. So they're not really going to be accepted by an underwriter.
Yeah.
So we look at comparable sales of what a buyer would purchase that other house for. So not just on square foot, price per square foot, but really another 5,000 square foot house,
Yeah.
right? On a quarter acre with a pool with 5 bedrooms. Not, well, this one sold for this amount per square foot, but it's a 3,000 square foot house and the subject's a 5,000 square foot house. So
That's interesting. Let me bring up something that I've been meaning to talk about with you guys for a long time. is that I can't tell you how many times I see TREC violations on social media, on all types of advertising from sales agents and even brokers. The Texas Real Estate Commission mandates that a salesperson or broker who is not also licensed as an appraiser cannot advertise to give you the value of your house. You can't use the root word value or any other variation of that word like valuation. I see these ads all the time that says free value opinion. Just log on here. Get your home's current value. I see that all the time. That's a TREC violation. So you can't do that. And if you're doing it, TREC is cracking down. It's $1,000 a pop, okay, for every violation. Now, that being said, one of the things that makes price per square foot more of an agent thing when it comes to like CMAs than it is an appraiser thing is that appraisers assign value to each component of the house. So I've been wondering, now the prices have come back down, I think pretty close to normal, but for several months there, lumber prices were triple and quadruple what they typically are. So when you were doing an appraisal on new construction, did you guys take that into consideration?
Yeah, new construction was tricky. Because they had contracted in September through December of 2020.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the time they were closing on it, a house 2 doors down that was just sold 2 months ago is selling for $75,000 more, or $75,000 more.
Yeah.
So they kind of shut down. They slowed down a lot on their closings. We do a lot of work with D.R. Horton, so it slowed down. They were trying to figure out how they were going to catch up to the existing home market.
Well, so, there's builders out there now, and I've got an agent who just texted me or emailed me yesterday or the day before, and there's another broker here in town who's starting a movement, like a petition, because some of these big production builders, and I've been hearing this for months, like it's a dozen times, but this one builder in particular is notifying their buyers that they've been under contract with for 9 months or a year. We're canceling the contract unless you want to pay us $27,000 more for this house, $50,000 more for this house. And if you don't have any recourse because the builder contracts are always swayed towards the builder.
Sure. I mean, they've got a 60-page contract, and throughout that contract, there's instances, and I've had it happen where they're not necessarily canceling it, but I've had one where there's a 9-month build time, and there's been 2 $10,000 increases due to materials cost, and it's perfectly legal inside of the builder contract.
Yeah.
So there's not much that I would like to see. I mean, we've been fighting from a lending perspective, the builder, lender, and builder title company relationship has always been, from an outside lender perspective, one that was very much skewed towards them maintaining that contract, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes it's a worse situation for your buyer.
Well, that's because the builders, they try and squeeze every juice out of whoever they deal with, whether it's the buyer or in this case the lender, right?
Yeah.
And they try and squeeze you for everything they got.
Well, they, even if it's originally, I understand the original intent because I've been doing this so long. The original intent was they were tired of losing deals at the last second as a builder, and so they said, we're going to start our own mortgage company. We're going to control the service level. Well, it's turned into such a huge profit center for them that now that's what it is, and realistically, it has nothing to do with the service level. It has to do with the profit that they're making on it. So
this market is so crazy on so many levels: buyers, sellers, lenders, appraisers. I mean, you talked about being absolutely inundated with orders from AMCs.
Yeah.
What percentage of order requests would you say that your company ends up doing?
I mean, it's hard to say.
Less than 50%?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure, 100.
Yeah.
And we're growing.
Do you cherry pick the
I mean, I've been doing it long enough where I have a good set of clients that will send me. I really work on multi-million-dollar properties, but my appraiser, we accept everything we can do.
You do.
Yeah.
You know, we try and if we have good relationships with our clients, so if somebody, hey, we need this, Damien will call me, hey, we need somebody to go out to Spicewood or wherever. All right, we'll see if we can fit it in. We just try and help everybody out that we can.
Which is never a violation of appraiser independence. Because
Okay.
we're talking about time frame.
Yeah,
We're talking about, hey,
location.
I
Do you
need-
go out
yeah,
here?
do you have anybody that's going to go out to Dale, Texas?
Let's say that I was going to go under contract on a house as the buyer's agent, right? I'm the agent representing a buyer on a house. And I call Damien, I say, hey, you know, Susie Smith sent you her info on your MyMorgo app, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget about MyMorgo app.
Yeah, that's full plug.
And she's A+ paper, she's a slam dunk. But we're worried about the appraisal on this.
Yeah.
And let's say that, like we're going to do here in a minute, we give everybody your home number and your and your mobile number.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just kidding, of course. Is there any way that me as an agent can circumvent, can bypass the AMC
I have
process?
agents call me all the time.
Can you do it?
Look, I mean,
Or
it
do
all
you
comes
do it?
down to, I mean, are you being ethical or not? I don't care what the value is. If you need an
Yeah.
appraisal done, I'll go out and do it.
So
and
the
I'll tell you
law
my
doesn't
opinion.
say that it has to come through the AMC for
Well,
you
I
to do
mean,
it.
it has to come through the
From a
AMC. I say,
lending
okay,
perspective, it
But
has to.
you, the lender, could make that happen.
The lender has to certify that all appraiser independence guidelines were followed. He has to certify that appraiser independence guidelines were followed. So in order to do that from a lending perspective, we have to control that through a third party, or we have to have an internal process.
What if somehow I, the agent who's representing this buyer, knew that for this particular house in Steiner Ranch,
Yeah.
the appraisal was going to cost what, $1,000? Is that?
it really depends on the square
Let's just
footage.
say,
but
yeah, let's say it was a
1,000.
smaller house, that $1,000, and I, the agent, said, Damien, if you can get that guy Josh out there, I'll double it. I'll make up the difference, and we'll pay him $2,000 to do it. Is that a thing?
That's not really something that
No.
goes on.
That would be unethical
No.
Yeah.
on the mortgage side and the appraisal side?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking for work like that where it's like, hey, I need this guy on it because he'll get the value.
Can't do it.
No.
I wouldn't,
no.
you
And
know.
that was the whole point of changing the process in the beginning, right?
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
the process would be that if we needed it in a faster turn time, if we needed it, let's say Kevin said, well, I promised him 3-week contract. And I'd be like, damn it, Kevin, how are we going to do that? Let me put it out there. That appraisal is going to cost us now, instead of $1,000, it's going to cost us $2,000. You know, and that's me guessing. An appraiser may come back and say, you know what, I'll go out in 3 weeks. You know, my normal fee is $1,000 plus a $300 rush fee, and we've
Sometimes
gotten
it works
done.
out where I'll get a phone call from a lender and I might be going out to the neighborhood tomorrow and they say, we've got this rush. Can you get it back to us by Monday? And this is Thursday. I say, great, I'm going out there tomorrow.
That
I'll
does
look
happen.
at it. I'll look at it and I'll type it up over the weekend.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and it's just.
That sounds
just,
like a luck of the draw.
It's a
type
luck,
thing.
That's-
right?
yeah,
You got me at
that's-
the right time. I was feeling good. I was at my
The-
desk. I answered the phone.
This industry is just fascinating
Well, what-
because there's so many layers, and learning about this appraisal, the nuances of your business and how, like, the ripple effects that it has across a transaction across the industry is
I
just
say
fascinating.
we're working as hard as we can for everyone out there to get these reports in.
Okay, you had one more thing and then another
Well,
question.
what I was going to say when you said that, what it boils down to is relationships. Josh is one of my panel appraisers, and then the second piece is having a good process. Like, I know that I'm not going to allow one of my agents. I'm not going to tell an agent, hey, I'll get it done in 2 weeks. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to need at least 3 weeks for my panel, and that's how we schedule. We're 3 weeks out on appraisals, so I won't even throw it out there unless I know I've got at least 3 weeks on getting the appraisal back in.
If I was an agent and you were handling the loan for my buyer clients, and
Which I
s-
have.
Well, yes, that's right. and I said to you, hey, listen, there might be some issues with this house. So normally we would do, a very fast option time, but we want to do, it's going to be like 5 days. But I've already explained to my buyers the potential delays in the appraisal process. And I said, Damien, we want you to go ahead and order it upon execution. Do you do that, or do you always wait until the end of auction?
No, I'll send an email and say, hey, I want everyone to understand that you're going to be charged for this appraisal. There is a chance that we could cancel it if you do a 7-day option and the appraiser has not gone out and done any work on it, then we could cancel it. And then, I mean, that doesn't,
but
because my appraisers are scheduling so many weeks out, it definitely gives him a free slot,
right?
But it's not necessarily something I'm in the practice of. So it's
doable if they're
doable.
Willing to pay for it and they're willing to
understand
take that risk.
Understand that it is.
What you got?
So, Josh, a question just to clarify and kind of summarize. What advice would you give an agent that deals in a lot of rural properties? Because we had a comment on here in
large acreage
Hamilton County. They're 90 days out for an appraisal.
Wow.
So I'm assuming that's kind of a result of this market that we're in.
Yeah, and probably just the low amount of appraisers out there or that service that area.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what rural is going to get
90 days.
That's pretty wild. Wow. I haven't heard of that, but again, I don't go out that far.
Right.
So, that's pretty long.
Yeah.
I would say, we've had agents call us and say, hey, are you on this panel? We're working with this AMC or this lender. And then I say, well, tell that lender to call us and we can get on with their panel and we can hopefully help you out if we can fit it into the schedule.
So as a general rule in today's market, if you're working a listing or working in the rural areas, make sure that you understand the appraisal process and you know the right questions to ask your lender to ensure you can set proper expectations for your clients.
Did that agent happen to say how many acres it was going to take 90 days? That would be curious to know.
I don't know, Diana, but if you're still on, let us know how many acres that is. And it was a conventional loan, so.
So we had an instance, and still have them. I had an appraisal take 75 days in Fredericksburg.
Wow.
And that was just because I don't have a lot of coverage there, and we changed our process after this, so I'm doing a property in Lake Livingston, and I called the listing agent. I called the listing agent and I said, hey, this is a strange request, but I want to ensure that I have coverage in your market as I seem to be doing more and more transactions towards this area. Can you help me with a list of appraisers that you've seen in the marketplace? And so adding those, I added 3 appraisers to my panel for that East Texas, North Lake Conroe area up that way. So really getting those appraisers on the panel is what your lender can do for you, is getting in contact with, and even the agent can get in contact. I mean, I had an agent help that wasn't an all-city agent help, an all-city agent on the buy side help us get an appraiser, and it ended up closing today, within 26 days. So
wow, 26.
Yeah, that was a tough one. We don't. I got the contract late, so we actually won it, and the client, essentially kind of drug their feet with the other lender, and then said, "Hey, no, I'm going with Daniel." And
that's awesome.
So we were like, "Oh, okay."
That's
Let
great.
me see if everything's still available.
Well, that's part of the MyMorgo advantage, is that the buyer can load those documents in via the app from their phone anywhere, and it just cuts down on the time for the buyer to submit the apps and for you guys to process them. What you got?
And this question kind of applies. It's a bit of an odd question. It's for Damien, actually. But understanding the adjustment with a last minute appraisal, what's the standard time from receiving the appraisal to actually sitting at the closing table from a lender perspective?
We've had to adjust in this marketplace. The standard time that I would request would be 2 days, so that we could get through our process. You have to add the AMC into this. So many of the AMCs and the one that I work with, they'll turn it around quicker, but they actually receipt the appraisal first. They look through it to try and earn their money, and they look for any revisions, and they'll send it back to the appraiser. So I won't necessarily get it. They'll say, hey, it's due the 27th, and let's say our closing's the 30th. I won't actually get it till the 28th because they're sending it back to our appraiser, and our appraiser may be out in the field, and he's like, hey, I'll get to it when I can tonight at 10 o'clock. So the answer to the question is, I'd like to have 2 days. We've had to adjust, and we've done it the day of. I mean, but I don't like to do that because what you've got to understand is you're putting so much pressure on everybody, and the title company is, obviously the lender is the bad guy. So they're frustrated with us because they're saying, what's the holdup? What's the holdup? And realistically, we didn't get enough time on the appraisal.
So a follow-up question. I don't know, you may or may not know this. Coverage in Canyon Lake, is it pretty good from AMCs? We have an agent that's about to list a big ranch and would like to know if she's potentially going to run up against appraisal delay with them.
Big ranch, that's his.
No, I don't do big ranch.
I would say that, and you and I experienced this on the listing that you took over.
Yeah.
Anything unique like that, first of all, you're talking about a very expensive appraisal.
Right.
Second of all, and I've got friends that are agents in, south of town all the way down to South Texas that deal in ranch properties, anything from, 100 acres to 2,000, 10,000 acres. Those appraisals take a long time, and it's a very specific, wouldn't you say, type of appraiser.
There's certain appraisers that's their niche market is large
and
acreage
just,
ranch.
For Jamie, I can tell you this, with the big ranch, set the proper expectations with your sellers, and if you have any buyers coming from a lender that is not local or specialized, like a Quicken Loans or a major bank, I would not deal with them, or at least tell your sellers that this is going to be a long process.
Hey, we're running out of time. I can't believe how fast this has gone. It's been really, really informative. But I have another couple of questions for us to wrap up that I know agents are wondering about. You go out to 123 Elm Street and you do the appraisal.
Right.
And it doesn't meet value. And whether it's, $100 below the agreed upon sale price or $50,000 below the agreed upon sale price, are you willing, and if so, what is the process for that listing agent and maybe even the buyer's agent who represents the buyers on that transaction to receive information from them, to receive maybe those same comps, that packet we were talking about that when we were discussing it for before you do the appraisal? And so, A, are you willing to look at that after the fact? And B, if the answer to that is yes, is there a process to that to see if we can recalculate value based on something you couldn't see?
Absolutely. There might be a sale that I missed or didn't see. It might have been an off-market sale.
Or wasn't in the amount, yes.
There's a lot of off-market sales.
Yes.
So I make it a practice to where if I come in below value, I typically will try and reach out to the agent before I submit.
Nice.
So I can say, I'm coming in below value. Do you have any comps that you built to support this that I might not have? If I can't get a hold of them, I write a note right underneath my value, opinion of value, in the report saying, I'm aware that I'm below the contract price. If there's any sales that are out there that the agent has, I'm willing to consider them. But I reserve the right to include them if I don't feel that they're really.
Let's say that
comparable.
you send that appraisal and that email with those notes.
Yep.
And let's say the agent is very prompt in getting back to you, and the next day they get back to you with 2 properties that if they replaced 2 of the below value properties on your appraisal, and in your opinion they look good, and you say you would be willing to adjust your value based on the fact that you didn't have access to those comps, what would the turnaround time then be? If they got back to you quickly.
I mean, typically it's 24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not another week or two
no,
to the process.
I mean, and again, we're trying to keep a good relationship with our clients as well. So when we get these revisions or these reconsiderations of value, it comes back with whatever AMC you're working with. you signed a contract with us that you'll have this back within 24 hours by signing up to our panel when we ask you to do things like that.
So we actually have a really good question. We have an agent, Mandy Stewart, who said she recently was representing the seller on a deal and had an appraisal completed. When it came back, the lender rejected it and said that it was a bad appraisal. The lender then came up with a value that would give that was $100,000 below the contract price. She says she's only been an agent for 4 years, but I've never heard of that happening. Is this common? To reject appraisers' value and set their own value.
So the lender said the appraisal was too high?
Was no good, and they set their own value.
So there's algorithms that the agencies, the GSEs, have come up with, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and even some of the jumbo investors. So the end investors have given appraisals a score. And if that score hits a certain number, then the lender is automatically required to pull a desk review, order a desk review from a third party, a different appraiser, or get another appraisal. So yes, it does happen.
I never knew that either. Is that happening more now with the ridiculous market that we're in?
It doesn't.
No,
it doesn't. But
there was more
it does
desk
happen.
reviews a few years ago than there are now.
I think people were unsure. I think now, what's crazy about it, and I did in July, I had 3 or 4 purchases with property inspection waivers. And to put, that is a godsend to a lender because unfortunately I don't have to call my friend Josh. He doesn't get any money off of it. But the algorithms inside of Freddie Mac have agreed with values in specific zip codes. So I'm actually seeing the opposite of that. I'm seeing more where it's the algorithms are working for us.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you, if let's say that you do an appraisal on 123 Elm Street and it doesn't appraise, and the agent and you send along the appraisal with the note that you said you're right, and the agent gets back to you immediately with, as I said before in that example, 2 properties that let's say were off market that you didn't have access to. Well, obviously they can't print out an MLS sheet on that. What format would you like to see those comps in? Would you want the agent to go as far as doing like a BPO? Because a BPO is about the most similar thing to an appraisal that an agent will do, right? In terms of, would you rather see it in that format or just like a bullet point?
Of the property they're trying to give us?
Yeah.
Well, we would have to have a HUD statement.
Well, right. You got to have the HUD to verify the sale price.
And then, if there's the details on it, give us the details of the property, the square footage, if we can't find it on taxes.
But what I'm asking is, would it carry more weight if they did a detailed BPO in addition to giving you the HUD, as opposed to giving you the HUD and an email with some bullet points that says, oh, it's got granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and a swimming pool?
Yeah, the more information, the better.
And the more succinct and well organized the
Absolutely,
information,
because it's going to make it a quicker process to look at these properties.
There was an agent that we had who had come up with some sort of a spreadsheet or a packet. Do you remember who that was? I want to say it was Cindy Curtis. Was it Cindy?
I know Cindy does. I know Laura Huffman Powell does.
If you're listening, whoever that was, I'm so sorry. I can't remember who it was. I think they even posted it and put that template on the All City Collaborative thread when we had that discussion a few weeks ago. And it looked really cool to me.
Going back to what, when we started that conversation, I've had many buyer's agents who are like, helping the listing agent do this. And that's something I love because we're all trying to move, we're a team trying to move
same goal.
Yeah, move the ball down the field. And, when we can all work together, just like the KW agent who gave me the name of the appraiser in Lockhart.
To help our All City
help everybody. And it made the deal work, and
that's awesome.
Just good
So
stuff.
we're running out of time. We have one big question. We have one that we can't.
We probably have 25.
Well, this has been really great, Josh. Thank you for your time.
Anytime.
This has been
We
wonderful.
may have to do part 2.
Yeah,
we might
need to do it again.
Have you had to bypass
I
a
would
lot of
say-
questions because there's so many?
No,
When we
I'm sorry, go ahead, Josh.
when we do get those reconsideration of value, if we don't use them, we have to put in the report why we're not considering them.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a rebuttal to that consideration. Say, well, we saw these, or for whatever reason, well, we didn't use this one because it's sold at this date, and we have a newer sale that shows more current value.
So are you saying, you didn't exactly say this, but you implied it if I interpreted what you said correctly, that if Susie Smith, the listing agent, sends I don't want to call it a protest. What's the word you use?
Reconsideration.
A reconsideration
value.
request
Yeah.
to you. Are you obliged to reevaluate it?
Absolutely.
You're
yeah.
obliged to do
Yeah.
that. Interesting.
Yeah, you can't just be like, nope. I don't know if other appraisers do that. I think that's poor practice.
I feel like
but-
I've heard of appraisers who get pissy about it and they don't like it.
I've definitely seen that. I've only had 2 come in under value this year, and definitely saw somebody kind of come back at us and
With an
was not-
attitude.
with an attitude.
Well,
about
now
it.
we will get agents that will send us reconsideration comps, and they're all below our opinion of value for the subject. And we're like, what's the point of this?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah.
So
You
it's
want us
kinda-
to go lower
So
than
that's
we are?
when, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's when we kind of get aggravated. We're like,
Yeah.
well, this was a
Yeah.
big waste of time. Now
Well,
I
Josh
have
has
to,
a family.
Now
He
I
has
have
better
to
things
talk
to do.
about these in my report of why I didn't use them.
Yeah.
So it's 30 minutes, an hour of rebutting a report that shouldn't even need to be rebutted. So
Yeah, and if you alter the original opinion of value, it's
it
going to
would
be
go
downward.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
crazy.
So for Josh, one last question. Where on the appraisal is appreciation shown? It's this agent's understanding that a 0.5 to 1% appreciation is reasonable per month for homes that are old, so 3 months on the market, I guess
Right.
6 months on the market. It seems I see stable as a market description when it should be rising in Austin for
I
many,
mean,
many years now.
I don't know any appraiser that's doing stable right now unless it's a small pocket that the data shows that it might be stabilizing. I do see small areas where it's kind of peaked a little bit. That's not to say it's not going to go back up.
Right.
But right now across the board, I mean, we're getting our appreciation, and well, this is all due from paired sales analysis. So if I have a sale that sold a year ago, it's the exact same as my other comp that sold a month ago, and there's a $150,000 difference, and the only thing that is different is time. Then the time is my adjusted value of $150,000.
Got it.
Right. So
Got it.
we break it all down line by line. So if they haven't seen an appraisal report, there's a sales comparison grid where we have itemized lines and we make our adjustments, not cost adjustment, but value adjustment of what the market is showing. It's reacting to that value. So that time of value would be reacted by whatever it is. It could be a percentage. You could break it down and say it's gone up 25% from last year in some areas, if not more. But we do it obviously just by a value percentage or a value number. Yeah.
Got it. This is great.
I'll tell you what, this was super, super powerful. I can't thank you enough for taking the
Absolutely.
time. And you're right, this was not enough time because
We can do it again for sure.
We need to,
Yeah.
if it's not too inconvenient for you.
Maybe see how your call with the Cowboys did.
Yeah.
The line is 8.5, so I'm telling you to put $500 on the Cowboys to cover. And I already called the upset that I think they're not only going to cover, I think they're going to win tonight.
Oh, they'll cover for sure. I think Cowboys are going to be good this year.
Yeah.
You know who?
I missed this part of the conversation.
You know what a lot of the
So-
pundits are saying about the NFC East is that if Fitzpatrick can just not screw up too much for not the Redskins anymore, the Washington football team, their defense is ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
their front four is
Yeah.
insane, and they are going to wreak havoc on some of the quarterbacks in this league. And I've seen people pick Washington, who won the division last year with, what was their record?
Oh, yeah.
7-9 or 6-10 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be that way this year. I think this year the Jets are going to suck in the NFC East. The Eagles are going to suck, and I think that
You mean the Giants?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like
I was thinking of the
saying the
other
same thing.
crappy New York team.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That the Giants are not going to be good, that the Eagles are not going to be good, and that Washington is going to surprise some people, and I think Dallas might too. So bet that 8.5 points.
I like
Listen,
it.
One last reminder before we leave. A week from today, in San Antonio, off of 1604, is our office, and we're going to be having our grand opening of our San Antonio office next Thursday, a week from today, September 16th, from 4 to 7. There are no RSVPs necessary. We're going to have booze. We're going to have hors d'oeuvres. We're going to have a jazz band.
Music, yeah.
We're going to have Dathan's going to dress in a clown suit and blow up balloons, balloon animals. So 4 to 7. 2722 West Bidders Road.
I said, make me a bicycle clown.
You know that movie?
Yeah.
Wedding Crashers. Do it, clown. So, did you post that flyer on
Yes,
on the
I'm
thread? And then
posted it
I'm gonna
earlier, I
start
believe,
blowing
too.
y'all up because we really want all of our other market agents to come in. So we love you guys. We're not going to have a broadcast next week because we're going to be drunk probably by noon, getting ready for this party, for this grand opening party. We want you guys to come and bring anybody you want to bring, all right? Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.